all three of our cars in the final, the RS3, the Viper, and the Porsche 911 Turbo, were fundamentally as fast as the 918. So in the final of Sorted, as you will be seeing, we unfortunately had to make some adjustments. The winner of the West Coast Regional was the Sheepy Race Audi R8. And for reasons I don't know personally, they did not want to make that car available to us for the final. And they did not want to make a similar replacement car available to us for the final. Even though they said extremely clearly in the regional, we called the dude up and we said, we are going to name you the winner of this. But if you can't come to the final, we're not going to have you win. It's a little more subjective, obviously, but you're making a television show. If the winner doesn't want to come to the next round, why make them the winner, right? So he said, no, if we're there, we're there. And then he fully ghosted us and was just like, no, and wouldn't make another car available. It was a nice car. I'm not going to lie. That R8 was a nice car. It was a nice package. But they didn't do the thing they said they were going to do and send it to the final. And we were paying to ship it. We have a shipping sponsor as well. East West Auto Transport is our shipping sponsor, and we were going to ship it for free. But what we had to do for the final, what we decided to do once the West Coast Regional winner was not available, was we got two cars back from the East Coast. We got the Calvo Viper and we got the ratified motorsport Audi RS3. Viper had a fuel pump issue, so it's making like 300 less horsepower than it should have. The RS3, when Tanner was lapping it, he thought the oil temp gauge was the water temp gauge. And so he went easier on it, thinking it was up overheating, and he just read the gauge wrong. Because he was literally getting in a car and like going, you know what I mean? So both of those cars we decided to bring back. And so we had a three-way final with the Sissio 911 Turbo S, the Calvo Viper, and the ratified motorsport RS3. Then we brought along a Porsche 918 because the RS3 was claimed 900 wheel horsepower, the Porsche was 900 wheel horsepower, and the Viper was 1,800 wheel horsepower. So we brought up a Porsche 918 Spider, which is pretty cool, and Tanner was lapping that, which was very, very cool to watch. That thing was moving. Sissio brought out a 911 Turbo S. It was a 2017. It had his kit on it, which is like a bolt-on kit, basically. It's a turbo upgrade. It's what you would consider a mild turbo upgrade, an exhaust, intercoolers, like basics. But the 911 Turbo is already such a ridiculous performance machine that it doesn't take that much to get it, really, really over the line. And in many ways, the drivability is virtually unchanged. This had an exhaust on it, but that was voluntary. It doesn't add performance. You can run this kit with a stock exhaust, which is very cool. And the 918 is the fastest car Porsche ever made from 6 years ago. The bottom line is you're talking about something that Porsche was selling for over $1 million, that still sells for over $1 million, and is just the heavy-hitting hypercar. You know, it's part of the trio, right? The LaFerrari, the P1, the 918 was sort of the holy trinity of 2015, cars. And what is crazy is that it is possible, and in fact, I don't want to say easy, but systematic and reliable to get that kind of performance out of a depreciated 911 Turbo. I mean, you get a 2017 911 Turbo, I don't know, 150 grand, 160 grand. You throw one of Nathan's kits on it, 40, 45K, I'm guessing, I think it's about that. And now, I mean, you're talking about true world-beating performance. You're talking about, numbers that really, really, really would shock somebody, and with almost no reduction in drivability. In terms of like Porsche and an Audi and Lamborghini, when you modify their cars, really still retain a lot of drivability. the turbo R8s and Huracans, the big power Porsches. You can really just drive those cars around like normal cars. That's what I find to be so amazing, is actually not that you could take a car and make 1100 horsepower, but that you could then commute in that car. And it's like not even really a thing. That's what's really crazy, because that's what 918 did. 918 took Le Mans car performance, right, and made it totally streetable. And you can do that now with their cars that are a step below. One of the reasons for this is that the mainstream exotics in the $200,000 to $250,000 range are actually, believe it or not, underpowered for their chassis capabilities. And this is for all kinds of reasons. It could be for fuel economy, it could be for emissions or noise, it could be just because they don't want to give it all or whatever. I mean, McLaren obviously has no problem selling death missiles, but everyone else is being a little more restrained about it. I have found in driving these cars that chassis-wise, there's a lot of room on the table there. A lot of room for more power at the high end. Now, if you took an STI and you tripled the horsepower, would you have to do a lot of supporting mods to that? Yes, you would. But you can take a 911 turbo and go 2.5 times the horsepower, and your cornering speed, on the road course is unaffected, other than having to manage heat in the brakes from the additional speed, other than having to manage heat in the engine from the additional power, unaffected. Whereas if you make a car that is multiples of its power, and it wasn't that great of a handler to begin with, we're talking about Lamborghinis 911 turbos and Viper ACRs. These are not cars that suffer from handling issues. So by doubling their power, believe it or not, they can still get around a corner and they can still drive all right. Like my friend Nick at VF Engineering in LA, they make the superchargers for the R8s and the Huracans. Their kits are unbelievable. You just plop it on and that's it. And his philosophy is that he makes power in what he believes to bring the engine in line with the chassis, more in harmony. And when I've driven their builds, I find that to be accurate. But I think Sissio's car is like that too. Sissio's car, yes, 1,000 horsepower, 900 of the wheels. But you can modulate the throttle, right? Partial throttle is a thing. That's what you don't see in the home-tuned cars. All the home-built cars, home-tuned cars, full throttle tunes. You want that car to run right? Idle or flat. That's how you drive them. You try and do partial throttle in a corner, and it just loses it. That's the difference between a factory tune and a home tune. But the really good shops, they do partial throttle tuning as well. So Sissio's car was the best at the infield portion of it because you could actually modulate the throttle in the corners as opposed to other cars where it was really a full throttle map. All three of our cars in the final, the RS3, the Viper, and the Porsche 911 Turbo, were fundamentally as fast as the 918. I mean, really, fundamentally just as fast in the ways that most people would consider to be important. From a roll, for instance. From a roll, that the Viper and the Porsche Turbo absolutely made mincemeat of the 918. And even the little RS3 was right there. I mean, the RS3 was the most impressive of all of them. It's MQB. You whittle that down enough, you're talking about a Golf. You know what I mean? It's a Golf with a different engine and gearbox and a better all-wheel drive system. Yes, it's an RS3. But the platform is Golf. That's where we're starting. We could even get, let's be generous, the platform's A3. I've driven the A3. It's terrible. The A3 is a piece of shit. The S3 and RS3 are nice, but the A3 sucks. To start with that and work your way up to something that really is within spitting distance of a 918, and in some metrics will beat it, is incredibly impressive. And Rat from Ratified Motorsport, his name Ratam. I believe he's Vietnamese, but he goes by Rat. Quiet, mild-mannered, car's just doing his thing, let the car speak for itself, not like loud like me. And here's this monster of a car that if you took it had graphics and shit off, but if you took the graphics off, it's a gray Audi. And woof, you know what I mean? Like, wow. I mean, really, it went. went really, really, really fast. What we are learning now is the performance potential of modifying a higher end car is very high if you do it wisely.
If you get a speeding ticket or other traffic citation, don't just pay it. It can involve costly insurance premium increases, points on your license, possible suspensions, and a lot of other inconveniences. And when you fight it, you want the right people on your side. That means finding a local lawyer to wherever you got the ticket, even if it's in your backyard or on a road trip or wherever. Off the record is the best way to find the best attorney. They pair you with a local attorney wherever you get the ticket to fight for you and achieve the best outcome. In most cases, you won't even have to appear. So be sure to check them out at the link in the description below and download their free app. You just take a picture of your ticket and they handle the rest. So be sure to check them out and thank them for their support of VINwiki.